When people imagine pirates, they often picture sleek, fast vessels cutting across the waves, already armed to the teeth and ready for plunder. But not every ship in a pirate fleet began its life as a stolen prize. Sometimes, pirates built their own ships from the ground up, a rare but fascinating chapter in maritime history. This process demanded not only skill and labor, but also a remarkable amount of organization. Pirates, often seen as chaotic rogues, had to act with precision and patience to turn timber into a seaworthy predator. Why build instead of steal? Most pirates took the faster route, capturing existing ships and refitting them. But building from scratch became necessary in certain situations. Remote locations when far from major shipping routes or after losing their ship in battle or a storm. Pirates couldn't always rely on finding a prize to capture. Specific needs: a stolen ship might be too slow, too big, or too small. Building their own allowed pirates to design a vessel tailored for speed, agility, and firepower. Avoiding attention, a newly built ship could be launched in a secluded bay without passing through a port where authorities might notice it. In some cases, building from scratch was less about necessity and more about ambition. A captain wanting the perfect ship for his crew's style of piracy. Choosing the site, the first challenge was finding a place to build. Pirates needed a hidden location, somewhere ships couldn't be spotted easily from the sea or stumbled upon by land patrols. Secluded coves, mangrove-lined inlets, or small river mouths offered both shelter and concealment. The site also had to meet practical needs: access to fresh water for drinking and shipbuilding tasks, a supply of trees large enough for masts, planks, and the all-important keel, firm ground for construction, ideally with a gradual slope to the water for launching the finished ship. The right spot could mean the difference between months of uninterrupted work and a sudden, disastrous discovery by a passing naval patrol. Gathering the workforce, a ship could not be built by a handful of men in a few weeks. Pirate captains had to mobilize their entire crew and sometimes recruit extra help from sympathetic locals or skilled shipwrights. The crew's talents were put to use wherever possible. Carpenters shaped the timbers. Sailmakers worked on canvas for the rigging. Blacksmiths forged nails, bolts, and fittings. Riggers prepared ropes and pulleys. Those without technical skills hauled timber, dug pits for steaming planks, or worked as general laborers. Securing materials, the raw materials for a ship, came from a mix of natural resources and procurement by piracy. Large, straight trees provided the backbone of the vessel, while hardwoods were favored for parts that needed to withstand constant strain. Pirates also needed iron for nails and bolts, pitch for sealing the seams, and tar for weatherproofing. These could be taken from captured vessels, traded for with friendly ports, or stolen from coastal settlements. Design and planning pirates didn't always work from formal blueprints, but they relied on the expertise of crew members who had served in shipyards or merchant fleets. The captain and the shipwright decided on key elements: hull shape: a narrow hull for speed, or a wider one for carrying more cargo and guns. Deck lay: outspace for cannons, crew quarters, and storage. Rigging style: sloop, rigged for agility, or brig, rigged for a balance of speed and sail power. Every choice affected the ship's future performance. A fast, lightly armed vessel could run down prey but was vulnerable in a fight. A slower, heavily armed ship could intimidate but risked losing faster targets. The keel: the first step, the keel was the backbone of the ship, laid out on the ground along the line where the vessel would take shape. This long, straight beam had to be cut from a single massive tree, and its placement determined the alignment of the entire hull. Once the keel was in place, stem and stern posts were attached, giving the ship its length and basic shape. Framing the hull with the keel set, pirates moved on to building the frame. Like the ship's skeleton, curved timbers known as ribs were fixed at regular intervals, rising from the keel to define the hull's curve. This was painstaking work, as each rib had to be precisely shaped and fitted. Improper alignment could make the ship unstable or slow in the water. Planking and sealing planks were then fitted along the ribs, running lengthwise to form the ship's outer skin. This stage required steaming the wood to make it pliable enough to bend without breaking. Once the hull was planked, every seam had to be caulked, stuffed with fibers and sealed with pitch to keep water out. Pirates used oakum made from old rope fibers mixed with tar, a technique as old as seafaring itself. The slow march to the masts by now, the ship was beginning to look like a vessel instead of a pile of timber. Masts were stepped, set upright in place, and rigging began to take shape. Sails were prepared and spars fitted to hold them. Below deck, bulkheads divided spaces for the crew, cargo, and powder magazine. Gun ports were cut and cannons, if already available, were installed. Challenges and dangers shipbuilding in secrecy was a dangerous business. Naval scouts or hostile locals could stumble upon the site, forcing the pirates to fight or abandon months of work. Supplies could run short, storms could damage unfinished hulls, and disease could spread through a crew confined to land for too long. A captain had to balance speed with quality. Launching too soon could mean sailing in a weak, leaky ship, but waiting too long increased the risk of discovery. With the hull complete and the masts stepped, the pirates' work shifted from raw construction to the finer details that would transform their handmade vessel into a deadly hunter of the seas. Every decision in this stage determined how well the ship would perform in the unforgiving environment of open water. The rigging and sails. The rigging was the ship's nervous system, ropes, pulleys, and lines that allowed the crew to control every inch of canvas. Riggers worked aloft, securing shrouds to steady the masts and threading halyards and sheets for hoisting and trimming sails. Sails were cut and stitched by the sailmaker and his helpers. Pirates often used canvas scavenged from captured ships, repairing or reinforcing it as needed. The rigging design depended on the ship's intended role. Sloop rig for maximum maneuverability, ideal for quick strikes and escapes. Square rig for powerful downwind speed, perfect for chasing prey across open seas. Mixed rig for versatility in various wind conditions. Arming the ship, no pirate vessel was complete without teeth. The choice of armament balanced weight, firepower, and crew size. Small swivel guns mounted along the rails for close quarters fighting and anti-personnel use. Medium cannons perfect for disabling rigging or damaging hulls without sinking valuable cargo. Long guns for ranged attacks to soften up a target before boarding. Cannons were placed to give the ship both broadside and forward firing capability. Even with limited guns, careful positioning could make a small vessel seem more dangerous than it really was. The powder magazine, where gunpowder was stored, was one of the most dangerous spaces aboard. Pirates reinforced it for safety, lined it with copper to reduce sparks, and posted strict rules against open flames near its entrance. A single careless spark here could turn the ship into a floating bomb. Interior spaces. While pirates were not known for luxury, the interior of their ships was arranged for efficiency. Crew quarters, hammocks slung wherever there was room, often below deck in the forward section. Captain's cabin located at the stern, offering more space, storage for charts, and a small desk for navigation. Cargo hold below deck, amidships for storing plunder and provisions. Galley, a simple cooking space with a brick or iron stove, vented to reduce the risk of fire. Painting and protection. Once the woodwork was done, the hull was coated with tar or pitch to waterproof it. Some pirates painted their ships in distinctive colors, black for intimidation, red for fear, or bright stripes to mimic certain national navies and confuse potential prey. This stage wasn't purely aesthetic. A well-coated hull resisted rot and marine growth, allowing the ship to sail faster for longer periods without cleaning. Final checks before launch before the ship touched water. The crew inspected every inch, ensuring seams were sealed. Checking rigging tension, testing the placement of masts for balance, making sure all essential gear was aboard. Anchors, spare sails, repair tools, and medical supplies. The launching a large wooden vessel without the facilities of a shipyard was no small feat. Pirates relied on rollers, logs placed under the hull to ease it toward the water. As the tide rose, the ship was guided down the slope, creaking and groaning until it floated free. This was often a moment of celebration. Months of labor, secrecy, and risk culminated in seeing the ship bob on the waves for the first time. Sea trials before committing to a long voyage, the pirates tested their creation. The crew sailed short distances to see how the ship handled in different winds, adjusted the rigging for better performance, and identified any weaknesses in the hull or fittings. If the ship took on water, additional caulking was done. If the balance felt off, ballast, stones or iron weights, was shifted to improve stability. Naming the ship, no pirate ship was complete without a name, often chosen by the crew or the captain to inspire fear or pride. Names like Seawolf, Black Serpent, or Queen's Revenge announced their presence as predators of the ocean. A christening might involve breaking a bottle of rum against the hull, or holding a raucous night of celebration, though with pirates, this often doubled as an excuse to drink heavily before setting sail. First mission preparations with the ship seaworthy and armed, the crew stocked up on provisions for its maiden voyage, barrels of water, salted meat, and ship's biscuit for long-term storage, powder and shot for every gun, tools and spare parts for emergency repairs. Routes were chosen carefully. The captain might aim for a busy trade lane to find prey quickly, or sail first to a hidden base to wait for the right season's winds and shipping traffic. Why this process mattered: a ship built by pirates wasn't just a vessel. It was a symbol of their independence and capability. Stolen ships came with the risk of recognition and pursuit by former owners or naval forces. A custom-built ship was unknown, faster, and perfectly suited to its crew's methods. It was the pirate equivalent of forging their own sword instead of using one taken from the enemy. With their freshly built vessel riding the waves, the pirates were eager to see if their labor had paid off. The open ocean was the ultimate testing ground. No calm bay or cautious sea trial could reveal how a ship would truly perform when wind, weather, and prey pushed it to the limits. Shaking down the rig, the first voyages after launch were as much about experimentation as they were about plunder. Every sail, line, and block was put under strain to see how the rigging behaved in heavy winds and during quick maneuvers. Crew members climbed the ratlines, making constant adjustment, tightening stays, shifting halyards, and testing reefing speeds. A ship that could not change its sails quickly was vulnerable in sudden squalls or when trying to match the movements of prey. Speed was often the most important quality in a pirate ship. If the new vessel couldn't outrun merchantmen or escape from a naval frigate, its life expectancy was short. Captains pushed their ships hard, sometimes challenging friendly or allied vessels to informal races. They learned how the ship responded when sailing close to the wind, how fast it could tack or jibe, and whether it could sustain top speed without stressing the masts or rigging to breaking point. Gun tests the first live. Fire exercises were both thrilling and nerve-wracking. Cannons were fired in broadsides and single shots, testing how the ship absorbed the recoil and whether the gun ports were positioned for maximum coverage. Pirates also measured reload times, experimenting with crew arrangements to see how to load, aim, and fire as efficiently as possible. This wasn't just about combat power, it was about intimidation. A fast, coordinated broadside could convince prey to surrender without a fight. Adapting on the fly, no matter how carefully the ship had been designed, real-world use always revealed flaws. Perhaps the helm felt heavy in strong winds, or the ship rolled too much in rough seas. Pirates made field modifications, adding or shifting ballast to improve balance, replacing or shortening spars for better handling, reinforcing weak spots in the hull with extra planking, adjusting sail shapes to catch the wind more efficiently. These changes could happen at sea or in secluded anchorages between hunts. The first real prey eventually, the testing phase blended into a true pursuit. The first merchantman sighted was not just a potential prize, it was the ship's first real opponent. The crew moved with a mix of excitement and nervousness, eager to prove that their work could deliver victory. If the chase ended in capture, it wasn't just a gain of cargo, it was validation. The crew would remember the first successful attack for years, telling the story in every port. Building a reputation, a ship's name meant nothing until it had blooded itself. A few victories quickly changed that. Word would spread. A new predator was on the seas, fast and dangerous, striking with confidence and precision. The speed and maneuverability of a purpose-built ship often gave pirates the advantage of surprise. Merchant captains, expecting to outrun most raiders, found themselves being hunted down by an unfamiliar silhouette that closed the gap with alarming ease. Life aboard in the early days, the first weeks, also revealed how the ship handled daily life. Was the galley whelp, laced for easy access in rough weather? Did the crew have enough sleeping space to avoid constant conflict? Could provisions be stored securely without spoiling too quickly? Any shortcomings here could breed resentment or slow the ship's efficiency in combat situations. A poorly ventilated hold might sour provisions. Cramped quarters could lead to short tempers. Weathering the first storm, no pirate considered a ship truly proven until it had survived a serious storm. When the first one hit, the crew reefed sails, lashed down cargo, and trusted the hull to hold together. If the ship rode the waves well and stayed dry below deck, confidence soared. If leaks appeared or rigging failed, repairs were made immediately, and lessons were learned for future voyages. Establishing hunting grounds once proven in battle and storm, the new ship joined the established hunting patterns of the pirate crew. The captain chose routes with a balance of prey and safety, places where merchant traffic was heavy, but naval presence was light. Because the ship was new and unrecognized, it had the advantage of surprise. Authorities and merchants didn't yet know what to look for, giving the pirates a window of freedom before word of their vessel spread. Crew bonding and loyalty building and launching a ship together forged a bond between crew and vessel. This wasn't a stolen prize, it was theirs, made with their own labor, sweat, and risk. That pride often translated into fierce loyalty, with sailors fighting harder to protect what they had helped create. The ship became more than a tool, it was a floating home and symbol of independence. Once a pirate-built ship had proven itself in the first weeks of hunting, the focus shifted from proving its worth to preserving and improving it. The open ocean was a relentless enemy. Saltwater ate away at wood and iron, storms battered every joint, and battles left scars both visible and hidden. A ship was only as good as its upkeep, and pirates knew they could not afford neglect. Regular maintenance at sea life aboard meant constant small repairs. Sailmakers stitched torn canvas, carpenters replaced cracked planks, and riggers inspected lines for fraying. Every day, crew members tarred the rigging to prevent rot, scraped the deck to remove salt buildup, and bailed out water from the bilge. Even in calm weather, a captain kept part of the crew working on repairs, because a sudden chase or fight could leave no time for fixing weak points. Careening the pirates' dry dock every few months, the ship had to be careened, hauled onto its side to expose the hull for cleaning. Barnacles, seaweed, and algae slowed the ship and could even weaken the planking. Finding a secluded beach or tidal flat, The pirates waited for high tide, then ran the ship aground. As the tide receded, they used ropes and blocks to tilt the vessel, scraping the hull clean and repairing any damage. Pitch and tar were reapplied to keep the wood watertight. Careening was dangerous. A ship out of the water was vulnerable to discovery. Pirates posted guards and scouts to watch for enemy sails. Replacing the sail's canvas didn't last forever, especially in tropical sun and salt spray. Worn sails lost their shape and efficiency, reducing speed. Pirates replaced them with fresh canvas whenever possible, sometimes from captured ships, sometimes stitched together from multiple sources. A clever sailmaker could even adjust the design, giving the ship more sail area for greater speed or reshaping them to improve handling in light winds. Armament upgrades. A pirate ship rarely kept the same guns for its entire career. Whenever the crew captured better cannons or swivel guns, they were swapped in. Gun carriages were reinforced, shot sizes standardized for faster loading, and powder supplies replenished. Some captains experimented with unconventional weapons: grape shot for shredding sails, chain shot for breaking masts, or even improvised explosives for intimidation. Modifying for new strategies. As the crew gained experience, they often modified the ship to suit their preferred tactics, removing weight for extra speed in chases, adding hidden compartments for smuggling loot, strengthening the hull to ram smaller prey, installing extra boarding ladders for faster assaults. Because the ship had been built by their own hands, pirates knew exactly where they could cut, drill, or reinforce without compromising safety. Defensive enhancements. Sometimes the upgrades weren't about attack, but survival. Plating vulnerable spots with extra timber, reinforcing the bulwarks, and building shields around the helm helped protect the crew in a fight. Even the powder magazine might be relocated or better insulated to prevent catastrophic explosions. Staying ahead of recognition. One unique advantage of a pirate-built ship was its anonymity, but as its reputation grew, that anonymity faded. To keep authorities guessing, pirates sometimes repainted their hull, changed the sail pattern, or even altered the rigging to mimic different types of vessels. Some crews swapped figureheads or removed distinctive decorations entirely before entering certain waters. Emergency repairs in battle. A fight at sea could damage the ship faster than any storm. Pirates trained for damage control, plugging holes in the hull with spare planks or even hammocks, cutting away damaged rigging, and shifting ballast to counter flooding. In some cases, the crew had to rig makeshift masts from spare spars to limp away from a battle site before enemy reinforcements arrived. The emotional bond deepens as months turned into years. The ship became part of the crew's identity. Every scar told a story: the patched hull from a near sinking, the burned marks from a cannon misfire, the repaired rail where a boarding party had stormed over. This bond was more than sentiment. It made the crew fight harder to defend their vessel. Losing it would mean not just the loss of their home, but the loss of the symbol of their independence. No matter how well a ship was constructed, the sea eventually claimed its due. Salt, storms, and cannon fire slowly weakened even the sturdiest pirate-built vessel. For crews who had poured sweat and skill into creating their own ship, deciding what to do when it began to fail was a matter of survival and sentiment. Signs of a ship's decline. Pirates knew the difference between normal wear and fatal weakness. Warning signs included persistent leaks despite repeated caulking, warped timbers that no longer fit tight, masts that creaked dangerously under heavy wind, hull planking that softened from rot or shipworm infestation. These problems could sometimes be patched temporarily, but eventually repairs became more work than the ship was worth. Choosing the ship's fate when a vessel was too damaged to continue safely, the captain and crew faced three main choices. Rebuild if the ship's frame was still sound. It could be overhauled with new planking, masts, and rigging. This was time-consuming, but preserved the vessel they knew and trusted. Replace the crew might build a new ship from scratch, especially if they had a safe, secluded base and access to timber. Abandon if circumstances demanded speed. They could strip the ship of everything valuable, cannons, sails, tools, even nails, and scuttle it to prevent it falling into enemy hands. Scuttling and disguise. When pirates scuttled a ship, it was often deliberate and strategic. Sinking their own vessel denied it to pursuers, prevented its recognition in future, and sometimes even served as a trap, bait for enemies who might waste time investigating a wreck. In other cases, an old ship might be abandoned intact but disguised, its masts cut down, hull painted crudely, and sails shredded. You make it look like a worthless hulk adrift at sea. Emotional farewell for a crew that had built their ship with their own hands. Abandoning it was more than a practical loss. It was a personal one. The ship carried memories of every battle fought, every storm survived, and every prize taken. Some captains marked the occasion with a final toast or ceremony. Others simply walked away, knowing sentiment had no place in the harsh reality of piracy. Rebirth through salvage. Even in abandonment, a ship's life could continue in fragments. Timber from an old hull might be repurposed into a new vessel's framework. Masts, rigging, and fittings could be reused entirely. This recycling wasn't just thrift. It preserved a tangible connection between the old ship and the new, a continuity of spirit if not of structure. When the end comes at sea sometimes, pirates didn't get the luxury of deciding their ship's fate. A battle might send it to the bottom in minutes, or a hurricane could smash it to pieces on an uncharted reef. In such cases, survival came first, and sentiment was a distant second. Those who lived to tell the tale often remembered the loss as a turning point in their careers, either forcing them into temporary retirement or pushing them into desperate hunts for a replacement. Legacy of a pirate. Built ship. A vessel that had served well-earned a place in pirate lore. Its name might be remembered in tavern tales, its victories retold for years, and its likeness sketched by sailors who claimed to have seen it under full sail. For some pirates, the ship became as famous as its captain, living on in reputation long after its timbers had rotted away. Final reflection. Building a ship from scratch was one of the rarest and most challenging feats in the pirate world. It required skill, secrecy, and cooperation in a profession more often defined by speed and opportunism. Yet for the crews who succeeded, the reward was unmatched. A vessel perfectly suited to their needs, forged by their own hands, and bound to them by pride and shared history. Whether it ended in glory, defeat, or quiet retirement, a pirate-built ship was more than a weapon. It was the heart of the crew that sailed her,